Hi again, everyone. I had to free up some space on my phone to continue reading the chapter. Finished reading the chapter from where we are now, where you see on the screen, and didn't even realize it was recording the final few pages. So let's pick up a little bit before where we left off. In later times, Babylonian and Assyrian texts disclose men, young and old, were sentenced to hard labor in the mines of the lower world. Working in darkness and eating dust as food, they were doomed never to return to their homeland. This is why the Sumerian epithet for the land, Kernugia, acquired the interpretation land of no return. Its literal meaning was land where gods whose work in deep tunnels pile up. For the time when the Nephilim settled earth, all the ancient sources attest, was a time when man was not yet on earth, and in the absence of mankind, the few Anunnaki had to toil in the mines. Ishtar, on her descent to the lower world, described the toiling Anunnaki as eating food mixed with clay and drinking water fouled with dust. Against this background, we can fully understand a long epic text named after its opening verse was the custom, when the gods, like men, bore the work, piercing together many fragments of both Babylonian and Assyrian versions. W. G. Lambert and A. R. Miller, Atrahasis, the Babylonian story of the flood, were able to present a continuous text. They reached the conclusion that it was based on earlier Sumerian versions and possibly on even earlier oral traditions about the arrival of the gods on earth, the creation of man, and his destruction by the deluge. While many of the verses hold only literary value to their translators, we find them highly significant, for they corroborate our findings and conclusions in the preceding chapters. They also explain the circumstances that led to the mutiny of the Anunnaki. The story begins in the time when only the gods lived on earth, when the gods, like men, bore the work and suffered the toil. The toil of the gods was great, the work was heavy, the distress was much. At that time, the epic relates, the chief deities had already divided the commands among themselves. Anu, father of the Anunnaki, was their heavenly king. Their Lord Chancellor was the warrior Enlil. Their chief officer was Ninurta, and their sheriff was Inugi. The gods had clasped hands together, had cast lots and divided. Anu had gone up to heaven and left the earth to his subjects. The seas enclosed as with a loop they had given to Enki, the prince. 7 cities were established, and the text refers to 7 Anunnaki who were city commanders. Discipline must have been strict, for the text tells us, come on, the 7 great Anunnaki were making the lesser gods suffer the work. Of all their chores, it seems digging was the most common, the most arduous, and the most abhorred. The lesser gods dug up the riverbeds to make them navigable. They dug canals for irrigation, and they dug in the Apsu to bring up the minerals of earth, though they undoubtedly had some sophisticated tools. The text spoke of the silver axe which shines as the day. Even underground, the work was too exacting. For a long time, the 40 periods to be exact, the Anunnaki suffered the toil, and then they cried no more. They were complaining, backbiting, grumbling in the excavations. The occasion for the mutiny appears to have been a visit by Enlil to the mining area. Seizing the opportunity, the Anunnaki said to one another, "Let us confront our the chief officer, that he may relieve us of our heavy work. The king of the gods, the hero Enlil, let us unnerve him in his dwelling. A leader or organizer of the mutiny was soon found. He was a chief officer of old time, who must have held a grudge against the current chief officer. His name regrettably is broken off, but his inciting address is quite clear. Now, proclaim war. Let us combine hostilities and battle. The description of the mutiny is so vivid that scenes of the storming of the Bastille comes to mind. The gods heeded his words. They set fire to their tools, fire to their axes they put. They troubled the god of mining in the tunnels. They held him as they went to the gate of the hero Enlil. The drama and tension of the unfolding events are brought to life by the ancient poet. It was night. Halfway through the watch, his house was surrounded. But the god Enlil did not know. Calcal then observed it, was disturbed. He slid the bolt and watched. Calcal rused Nusku. They listened to the noise of Nusku roused his lord. He got him out of his bed, saying, "My lord, your house is surrounded. Battle has come right up to your gate." And Lil's first reaction was to take up arms against the mutineers. But Nusku, his chancellor, advised a council of the gods. Transmit a message that Anu come down. Have Enki brought to your presence. He transmitted, and Anu was carried down. Enki was also brought to his presence. But the great Anunnaki present, Enlil arose, opened his mouth, and addressed the great gods. Taking the mutiny personally, Enlil demanded to know, "Is it against me that this is being done? Must I engage in hostilities? What did my very own eyes see? The battle has come right up to my gate." Anu suggested that an inquiry be undertaken. Armed with the authority of Anu and the other commanders, Nusku went to the encamped mutineers. "Who is the instigator of battle?" he asked. "Who is the provoker of hostilities?" The Anunnaki stood together and said, "Every single one of us gods has war declared. We have our in the excavations. Excessive toil has killed us. Our work was heavy, the distress much." When Enlil heard Nusku's report of these grievances, his tears flowed. He presented an ultimatum. Either the leader of the mutineers be executed, or he would resign. "Take the office away. Take back your power," he told Anu. "I will go to you in heaven ascend." But Anu, who come down from heaven, sided with the Anunnaki. "What are we accusing them of? Their work was heavy, their distress was much. Every day the lamentation was heavy. We could hear the complaint." Encouraged by his father's words, Ea also opened his mouth and repeated Anu's summation. But he had a solution to offer. Let Alulu, a primitive worker, be creative. While the birth goddess is present, let her create a primitive worker. Let him bear the yoke. Let him carry the toil of the gods. The suggestion that a primitive worker be created so that he could take over the burden of work of the Anunnaki was readily accepted. Unanimously, the gods voted to create the worker. "Man shall be his name," they said. They summoned and asked the goddess, the midwife of the gods, the wise Mami, and said to her, "You are the birth goddess. Create workers. Create a primitive worker, that he may bear the yoke. Let him bear the yoke assigned by Enlil. Let the worker carry the toil of the gods." Mami, the mother of the gods, said she would need the help of Ea, with whom skill lies. In the house of Shimti, a hospital-like place. The gods were waiting. Ea helped prepare the mixture from which the mother goddess proceeded to fashion man. Birth goddesses were present. The mother goddess went on working while incantations were constantly recited. Then she shouted in triumph, "I have created, my hands have made it." She summoned the Anunnaki, the great gods. She opened her mouth, addressed the great gods. "You commanded me a task, I have completed it. I have removed your heavy work. I have imposed your toil on the worker man. You raised a cry for our worker kind. I have loosened the yoke. I have provided your freedom." The Anunnaki received her announcement enthusiastically. They ran together and kissed her feet. From then on, it would be the primitive worker, man, who will bear the yoke. The Nephilim, having arrived on Earth to set up their colonies, had created their own brand of slavery, not with slaves imported from another continent, but with primitive workers fashioned by the Nephilim themselves. A mutiny of the gods had led to the creation of man. And that does Chapter 11, Mutiny of the Anunnaki, in Zecharia Sitchin's The 12th Planet. Sorry this had to be in two parts. I wanted to do this in one video, but the memory on my phone wouldn't allow it, and I didn't realize it until I was done reading the chapter, and it wasn't recording anymore, but we got it through. It's done. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for following along, for those who are. I appreciate any and all comments, and especially appreciate the support and kindness from each and every one of you. Thank you all. Have a good day.